Shane Gillis, one of the funniest comedians on the world. I think he's one of the funniest people out right now in the world. And you have something to talk about his SNL appearance.
Well, yeah, it's a fantastic story. I think it's one of the biggest stories in entertainment, and it's kind of like a comedian you might not have heard of. He's not a household name yet, but it's interesting. Shane Gillis will be hosting Saturday Night Live this Saturday.
Nice.
Now, why is that a big deal? Because he was famously fired from the cast just a few years ago. 2019, they announced Shane Gillis is going to be the host, one of the cast members of Saturday Night Live. And this is a big honor for young comedians. And usually you get about a year, and a lot of comedians get fired after the first year famously, but those that can hang in there can go 5, 10, 15 years, changes their entire life. Shane wasn't so lucky. They fired him before his first show because a bunch of activists got on there and go, who is this kind of pasty, chubby, white, straight male? Why the hell is he getting on NBC? They were already doing a diversity push at that time, if you remember.
I remember. I've been in those auditions.
So they scoured, and Vinny and we have comedians here who have sent in tapes and so forth, and they were looking for this diversity angle. So people scoured all his material. Who is this Shane Gillis? How did he beat out the minorities here? And he must have been really good to even get that opportunity.
Look at his Trump impersonation.
Trump impersonations are on point. Turns out they went through all his podcasts, which they're going to do to us from this show just today. We're all fired in the future. They found a few jokes 10 years prior. He made a joke about in New York. He goes, Chinatown is disgusting. They can have that. I went there. I think it was a dog hanging in the window.
Yeah,
then he did the accent. You eat this dog, whatever he did. And they said, oh, that's racist. It can't happen. Then he did a gay joke here and there. When you do a podcast, it's a long form discussion. So you're going to say, you give a comedian enough microphone, they're going to say something horrible into it. So instead of getting his dream job, he experienced a nightmare. Full court press. They got him yanked off. His firing happened before he even did it. So I'm going to read with Lorne Michaels had to come.
Can I say one thing quickly?
Go ahead, please.
When it comes to the podcast, I actually went and listened to it because this was the height of, this was like it was like right after the Me Too movement started to die off, but we were in the phase of still canceling people. And so I was like, I got to hear what he said. So I went to listen to the podcast. And when he was he made the alleged racist comments about Asians, he was doing impersonation of New Yorkers back in the 1920s and going, let's dedicate a town to these people. But he was doing an impersonation of making fun of white people from the 1920s and how racist they were. And they took that and spun it and went, this guy's making fun of Asians. Fire him from SNL. And then SNL went, okay.
They did.
Which is the same company that did this to Norm Macdonald. Did you ever see Norm?
Totally.
Norm came out and hosted. Norm got fired because he made fun of O.J. Simpson. And Don Ohlmeyer, who was one of the heads of NBC at the time, came and said, if you don't stop, he was friends with O.J., said, if you don't stop making jokes about O.J. Simpson, you're going to be fired. And then Norm went on, and his infamous one, it was right after the ruling, O.J. Simpson was found not guilty, and he opens and he goes, I guess murder is legal in California. They fired him from the show, and then a year and a half later, he goes back to the show and hosts. So he comes back like 16 months after getting fired, and he opens that show with going, listen, I got fired because they said I wasn't funny. So what that means is either I'm not funny, or in the 16 months that I've been gone, this show has gotten so unfunny that now I'm funny, and they brought me back, and the fucking cast hated it. You can hear them booing in the background of that clip.
We're going to get into exactly what you just said, because first I want to read this apology. Lorne had to apologize to all of NBC and everyone. They said, after talking with Shane, we've decided he will not be joining SNL. We want SNL to have a variety of voices and talking points, and although we hired him based on the strength of his audition, we were not aware of his prior remarks that have surfaced. The language he used was offensive, hurtful, and unacceptable. We're sorry we didn't see these clips first. So now, that's like putting blood in the water, right? Now it's okay to attack Shane. We have none other than Sandra Oh, who's a famous actress, and she stuck up for all Asians, and she said, glad to see NBC's decision not to legitimize giving a platform to purveyors of racist, homophobic content, lazy ass, unoriginal. So people just come. The hate was out there.
She's too lazy to spell the word too. Yeah, use the number. Who are you to call anybody lazy and unoriginal? You pretend for a living.
Well, this is where it gets better. So they sacrificed the chubby white guy, and who do they hire as a full-time cast member? Bowen Yang. So this was their offering to say, we're NBC, we have repented, we've done better. We found not only an Asian, but also a gay. The two things
That's much more offensive. Isn't that? Oh, this guy made fun of Asians. We're going to fire that guy and hire an Asian.
And guess what? Sprinkle some gay in there. Sprinkle some gay in the mix.
Oh, he's gay too?
Now, I have watched Bowen, and he's talented, but it's just funny. That's why they chose him to, an offering to the gods, the woke gods. So, okay, so what happens to Shane? He goes underground. He starts hanging with Tony Hinchcliffe, Joe Rogan. How good do you have to be to get famously fired? Like, if I got fired from here, these guys wouldn't even talk to me after today's show.
No, you get blocked like his friend did from California.
Block, never heard of him.
Immediately, it's a call.
So he's funny enough that he got back in there. He built his own career up from doing open mics, podcasts, got the attention of Netflix, put out a special. He was treated like a dog, but they brought out his special, Beautiful Dogs. It was one of the highest rated of last year. And so now the story arc comes full circle. He will be hosting February 24th. The question that still remains is, how will the cast feel working with a racist 4 or 5 years ago, and now is he cleansed of all of it?
Yeah, it's crazy how it changes, right?
A lazy, unoriginal racist who had one of the largest Netflix specials out to date in 2023, and is going on tour and is doing like not even theaters now, arenas. And there's a woman, Sandra Oh, the girl that was from like Scrubs or one of those medical shows.
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy. She pretends for a living. This guy actually it's so hard to do what you guys do.
What you do.
Yes, but like to actually sit down and go, these thoughts that I have are entertaining to me and they're funny, and I'm going to get on stage and tell them to people, and it takes years of honing that craft, going to open mics, doing showcases, driving 8 hours to make $50 just to audition to get in with a
club. Kissing the owner's ass, begging for time. Oh,
and
my
then you get that moment to go be on what is, I would think at that point, still was every comic's dream would be to be on SNL.
Just get on there.
Big time.
And so you've worked your ass off, and then it gets pulled away from you, and then people celebrate it.
Yes, they're so happy, and that's why I call Saturday Night Live Sorry Not Laughing, because that's what the SNL stands for. Shane tried to give an apology that was unaccepted just 4 years ago. He said, and every comedian can relate, they say never apologize because it doesn't help, but I think this was a heartfelt one. I'm a comedian who pushes boundaries I sometimes miss. If you go through my 10 years of comedy, most of it's bad. You're going to find a lot of bad misses. I'm happy to apologize to anyone who is actually offended by anything I've said. My intention was never to hurt anyone, but I'm trying to be the best comedian I can be, and that takes risks. That's fair. That should be all it takes in our culture and our society to be like, get back up there and try. But I love that Shane is like the Cubs of comedy, where you root for the Cubs because they're just the guys who need a win the most.
So you guys as comedians who are like a little bit older, I've heard the saying that.
Jesus Christ, Brandon!
You'll get what I'm saying. You'll get what I'm saying. So I've heard the saying before that comedy is the canary in the coal mine for free speech. So do you guys like ever remember a time where people would get canceled for making certain jokes, like in the 80s or 90s?
You know,
I don't think anything. There was more freedom back then, because
Lenny Bruce would get taken to jail for like some of the things he would say.
Yes. I mean, he'd curse, and then they'd find him for obscenity.
So it started back to black and white TVs. Okay, couldn't say the F word. They like George Carlin. They were waiting for these guys to say the F word. Like think about that. And then we got to a point where like Don Rickles and all these guys, where everybody shit on everybody. Equally, and everybody, by the way, had sense of humor, and everybody's butthole wasn't tight and sensitive where you could talk about it. But then the woke, and then once we started protecting people's feelings, the content and both comedians started becoming softer and weaker, and then all these like, oh, I'm big on TikTok, I'm a comedian now. All that bull crap started happening, and then you're seeing them when you see these guys. I call them regulars. They don't have specials. They have these 1 hour regulars where you're just like, what is he even talking about? It's kill. I think that type of stuff killed comedy.
I'm not a comedian, therefore I'm not a little bit older, but I'm a student of comedy. Not only they didn't cancel them, they pushed legislation forward. We have George Carlin. That appeared in front of Congress.
I saw that.
For his joke, the fame was the 5 words you shouldn't say on television.
5 words. I don't want to say I'm going to get in trouble.
Okay,
Seven
so
deadly
they were not only being canceled, being arrested, they were pushing forward freedom of speech.
Yeah.
In ancient Rome, and this was wrongly attributed to Caesar, Julius Caesar, he said a phrase called vis comica, or the power of humor. Like every time you have a subject that is too taboo to talk about it seriously,
yes,
it
needs
you
humor.
joke about it. The only guy that didn't get beheaded in a court was the jester.
Yeah.
The jester could talk, he could talk back to power.
Yeah, great.
So in a healthy society, the role of comedians, that's why I think of you guys so highly, because I know the hustle, I know what you guys are trying to do, and I know how important part of society comedians are. It takes a lot to make me laugh. Like if this is not about kids.
You're
dying.
dead on the inside, though. We don't take that personally.
But it's an important thing, and to weigh in. Huh?
It is. It's so important that the first live broadcast in front of a studio audience in the weeks following 9/11 was David Letterman doing The Late Show.
Okay.
That's how important it was to have comedy back to bring levity and go, these are terrible times, but we have to move forward. Because if you remember, 9/11, it was literally, they shut down every channel. Nickelodeon, the Cartoon Network, was just those planes flying into those towers over and over and over again for days on end.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Howard Stern fan. Not so much anymore. But I grew up listening to Howard. It's why I went into radio.
Huge.
The government did the same thing to Howard. They started imposing FCC fines, and he wasn't going on and saying the 7 dirty words.
Right.
It was, well, you're talking about sex too much. You talked about poop too much.
Yeah.
And they were creating fines where then it became where they would fine, instead of just a radio company, they started fining the individual broadcasters, which is why he left terrestrial radio and went to Sirius XM, was because instead of, if we say something here, they're not going to fine you, Humberto. If there were rules in place, they go after valuetainment, right? You're an employee. They switched the rules and the FCC started going after the individual broadcasters. It made people scared to speak their mind. So there's always been this clamp down on comedic efforts, but I think the harder they clamp down, the more creative people get and new mediums emerge. Well, radio died, podcasting created, and comics went from not being able to say certain things because you might get canceled on a stage or get fired from a comedy club. Well, you can go say it on this podcast, monetize your Patreon account, and create a system where now you're just creating content for your fans. So I think specifically comedians have always found a way to kind of fight that censorship in a creative way that's made their careers better.
I love that.
They're a pillar of a healthy society. You can judge a society on how much you can joke around.
Yeah,
Go to China. Come on, tell it. North Korea.
Iran. My family's from Iran. I could not do a joke in the Middle East.
Dude, I did a show in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I was in Jeddah. Bro, let me explain something to you. You guys all know me. You guys all know my set. I'm out there. I talk about my life, military, sex. I don't care. As I'm about to go on stage and do 45 minutes to an hour, the guy goes, hey, you have to talk to the owner really fast. He just wants to go over. And I'm not proud. I can't make this up. He goes, hey, Vincent, you can't talk about the government, religion, women, sex. And I'm seriously, as he's saying that, I just went, well, that goes that. So I just, dude, it was a shock. I just went up there and I was like, man, is it hot out there?
I did shows in Dubai, and we had to send in our jokes to the Standards and Practice Committee before we got there. And I'm like, how do I write the joke in a way that they, and the guy, emailed me back, it doesn't look funny, but you can say these things. It's okay.
but I do think, going off what you guys said, I forgot who it was, bro. Somebody gave me a compliment once. He was like, bro, comedians are the modern day philosophers. You could take something serious, make everybody look at it, point at it, and show how ridiculous this stuff is. Like, we've shot all this stuff with DEI and all the funny stuff that the content that we're creating. I think you're flipping it on society and showing them, look how ridiculous and look how serious we're taking ourselves. You're not that serious. It's not that big. I mean, obviously, life is going to give us those moments where we're like, dude, you have to deal with death and disaster. And like you said with 9/11, they were showing the planes hitting on, and then they stopped it everywhere. You were getting mad. You turn on Nickelodeon, like, where the hell are the planes?
Yeah.
Don't take that away. Like, it's such a weird thing. But I think we are more prevalent. Like, we're more in need right now of trying to be funny. So when they do cancel a guy like Shane Gillis, it is a warm. I love the fact that it's like never giving up. Because when that was happening, everybody thought, he is finished.
He'll never do comedy again. But can we admit this? Can we admit, because most of us are moderate to the right, can we admit that we shouldn't live in a society where we arrest comedians for saying 7 dirty words and put them in jail? Can we admit that?
Of course.
Yeah. But the left can't admit today that we don't cancel comedians for doing a Chinese joke 10 years ago or for saying the R word or the N word or the A, B, C, D, E, F, LGBT word. So they are what they hated the most from just 30, 40 years ago. They've become that, and now we're the opposition force.
And, you know, we're being warned, but as I read that you were going to do this, you know, my 2 cents. This is the first time and the last time I'm going to do a little bit of Trump bashing.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm allowed.
That's fine. You're not an absolutist, which is good.
How dare you?
This,
Wrap it up.
and I will never forgive him from this. He forgave Bud Light.
Okay.
That was the most relevant cultural win the right had in decades. Not years, decades. And he forgave them.
He forgave them.
I forgive.
But they're not doing that again.
Listen. I forgive Shane Gillis because he now has to deal with Bud Light.
Bud Light, yeah.
He has to deal with them.
He drinks 90 of them in one sitting.
And keeps going back to SNL and whatever. Dude, as an individual, go get the bags. Go get the bags. You know, do the best. If it was your dream as a kid to be on SNL, if you want to get some of that Bud Light money, go do it. But if you're leading a movement, the America First movement,
stay on track.
Stay on track. Like, because that's why they always win. They never forgive, they never forget.
Well, let me just say this.
I kind of like that.
This will be the first time I tune into SNL because I want to watch him and I want to see the chemistry between the cast that was so happy to throw him under the bus. He's back, baby.
Yeah.